they kept saying states like Florida, Nevada, California, and I kept correcting. And eventually they got around, but still they were missing. It was quite obvious that they weren't easily thinking of countries. It was just not in their mind. And when I first came to America, it used to offend me that people didn't understand outside of who they were, outside of their little circle. But living here for a while, I've come to understand that when I was in Nigeria, when I was a kid, I watched movies from different parts of the world, America, India, China. So, and then I lived in a multicultural household, so it wasn't hard for me to understand, a culture outside of mine, or at least feel like I could relate to a culture outside of mine. However, in America, most of the media, most of what's sold to people is just one main culture. So, I could kind of see why that's a problem. So, and the other example is I spoke, actually in October, I had my books at the Port Harcourt Book Festival. So I don't know if anyone knows, but Port Harcourt is UNESCO's titled World Book Capital. It's the first West African, it's the first sub-Saharan African city to be given this title by UNESCO. And of course I had to jump in because I'm from Port Harcourt, or I was raised in Port Harcourt. My father was the president of the Chambers of Commerce in the city. He was a politician there. My mother wrote children's books there, so I just had to do it. So I made some activity sheets for the kids, and I asked my representative over there to, give me some feedback on how the kids respond to the questions and that I put out for them. And her response to me was, I don't know how the great feedback you're gonna get because some kids have trouble reading. So we don't, some kids maybe older, but they don't read in their level. So I'm still trying to figure out the exact issues when it comes to literacy, but from what I'm told, there's some difficulty in some areas when it comes to literacy in Port Harcourt or Nigeria. So third point, how to make a difference. How can we make a difference? So my nonprofit, Juma Kids, which I have displayed there, named after my parents' company, Judith, Matthew, Judith and Matthew. This nonprofit focuses on helping kids tell their story. Because despite us assuming the kids, are just, little people and they, we just want to protect them, the truth is they have a story to tell. We all do. But kids have an innocent story to tell that we could really learn from and we could really connect with. So the books I wrote, the first two books under my company, is based on my stories in my parents' lives. They're completely true stories and completely based on a child's memory. So the book Ice is based on a story my father told me about when he first saw ice and experienced ice. He ran home to show his mom what he found, but by the time he got there, it disappeared. And he tried to explain to his mom why, about what he found. His mom didn't believe him because she also didn't know what ice was. And this was in the 1950s, rural Nigeria. But of course, he grew up to be a chemical engineer, like my friend over there, and then a politician. So over time, of course, he figured out what ice was. But the message in the story is, sometimes simple things can come across complicated if you don't understand. And I feel like stories like these are important to Nigerians, of course, but also to Americans. And same thing with What the Baby Saw. It looks like a plain story, that you would see in Barnes & Noble, but it's also another diverse book. And these two books are pretty similar. They look very different, but they're actually pretty similar when you look through it. And this is a story about what the baby sees in World War II Hungary. And it's based on the memory of an 8-year-old. And it's also inspired by a letter that I found written by an 8-year-old in World War II Hungary, who's my aunt, my mom's older sister. The reason why I was focusing on nonfiction stories is because there's a little issue with diversity in America and in many countries, but I'll start with America. In America, if you go to a bookstore, there's a diverse section, a children's bookstore, there's a section for diverse books, multicultural books, and then there's the mainstream regular books. And so people might go to the cultural section when they want to expand their mind a little bit, but then they'll go back to the regular stuff for most of the year. And within the multicultural section, someone might feel like, okay, this African American book doesn't relate to me. I'm not African American, or I'm not Chinese, so this wasn't written for me. But the truth is, we have a lot of similarities in our diversity. So I wanted to focus more on the idea of nonfiction, kids telling their story, rather than, hey, learn about this culture or learn about this. Because the truth is, if you understand how similar we are within our diversity and learn how to relate to people different from you, it benefits you more than it does the other person. When people didn't understand me in America, I didn't feel bad for myself, I felt bad for them because I understood them, but they just didn't understand my point of view. And so the long-term goal for Juma Kids is to basically get kids to tell their stories and publish them into books just like these, and share it with other kids around the world. Starting between Hungary, Nigeria, and America, of course. I think that's it.